Okay, I know you're rich. I know you got $40 billion, but can you just keep it to one house? I mean, why have 52 rooms and you know there's somebody with no room? It just don't make sense to me. But I'm saying it's a struggle, and I think everybody deserves. And I think there's a way to pay these people. I think there is a way. It just takes to be revolutionary, and it takes to do something out of the ordinary. That is not idealistic, that's just real.
Today, we're going to discuss one of my favorite bands of all time. Truly, one of my earliest inspirations as a songwriter, musician, artist. Hell, they might even represent my first exposure to leftist or at least very progressive politics in an overt way. Now, who am I talking about? Five Iron Frenzy. Now, if you're unfamiliar, Five Iron Frenzy is a Christian band. Don't click away from the video. I promise this is worth your time. Five Iron Frenzy is a Christian ska band. Please don't go, I promise. They're great. Five Iron Frenzy is a Christian ska band with several political songs. Please don't go. They cover other topics, and it mostly avoids being preachy, and there's some real care and artistry put into it, and the politics are actually good. So Five Iron Frenzy is a quasi-political Christian ska band whose name is a reference to golf. Please don't go anywhere. And they're from Colorado. Well, okay, I guess there's not really a super common anti-Colorado attitude out there, right? Actually, you know, I've always wanted to go. I always thought I'd like it there in Colorado. The marijuana cigarettes are legal, which of course doesn't apply to me because I don't do the pot. But of course I am a strong believer in ending the drug war via full legalization of all drugs, replacing the consequences for all drug-related issues with harm reduction therapy, rehab, treatment, etc. If we just had free public college, which would basically cost us nothing, we could mobilize the upcoming generation to go into the healthcare field and help treat addiction with our free public healthcare system. And we could start a program where we put a teacher's assistant in every classroom in America, and they could handle all the clerical crap like inputting grades, which I hate doing. And we could have programs that pay for teachers' assistants to get master's degrees and become full-on teachers themselves. Then we could start the full-on classroom teachers with master's degrees at $70,000 a year, not just because it would benefit me personally, but because it would get a lot more talented people teaching our kids. And I think most importantly, it would send a strong message that we're taking education seriously as a country, a culture, a community. Now, these are all things other than the specific teacher's assistant thing that I mentioned, and I guess all the drug legalization stuff, that every other developed country has managed to do, i.e. public health care and to a large extent free public college. Some countries have legalized or at least decriminalized drug use and gotten way better outcomes using harm reduction strategies and just overall focusing on rehabilitation instead of punishment. And if you really think the United States is so great, why can't we get it together and at least try to provide for our citizens at least as well as some of these other developed countries? And if only one other country, like say Norway or maybe Portugal, has been able to pull off some of the stuff I've mentioned here, that should be more than enough reason to believe that we supposedly exceptional Americans can get it done. Sorry, I figured that if you stuck around after hearing the phrase Christian ska band, you were pretty much a captive audience that would sit through a rant. Let's talk about Five Iron Frenzy now. I could say so much about this amazing band. My history with them, how they inspired me to write songs, how their lyrics and themes and everything just spoke to me from an early age, and how even though I'm not religious, I still love their music, and I even kept listening to and loving them after they broke up in 2004, even throughout my teenage/early 20s edgy atheist phase. But it's already been kind of a minute since this video started, and I haven't even started talking about the song, so I'll save that personal, sentimental stuff for the intro to the next Five Iron Frenzy video that I make. Let's hop into my cover of this song. It's chopped up for commentary purposes, and of course, the original Five Iron Frenzy version from their 2000 album, All the Hype Money Can Buy, is the best, so of course I'll link that in the description. Short for description. So, before the words even come into the picture, the song makes an impression. It's weird, right? Now, Five Iron Frenzy is kind of a weird band. The musicianship in terms of playing ability and creativity on members' respective instruments is more advanced than you might expect from a Christian ska band that I once saw live at a weird megachurch. Now, I won't get too musically theoretical for this, but they're either using some weird scale I'm unaware of in this song. A scale is a series of notes that sound good together played one after another. A chord is a series of notes that sound good together played at the same time. There. Now you know roughly as much music theory as I do. Whatever scale the notes they're using fall into, they make the song sound kind of demented, right? Kind of sounds like a hellish circus theme or something. All right, it's time to get serious.
When no one looks, the clouds come rolling in. And under darkened skies, the buildings grow big teeth and eyes. They breathe and walk through unending doors. Eating restaurants and barber shops and hardware stores with catchphrases and jingles, stealing concrete lies. The corridors of Babylon are craning for the skies.
So we got some good stuff here. Lyrics that I would describe as
juicy.
Right off the bat. Like many great songs, this one sets a scene. When no one looks, the clouds come rolling in, and under darkened skies, the buildings grow big teeth and eyes. So whatever is happening here, it happens when no one is paying attention, which isn't really how weather works. It may seem simplistic, but in my many years of trying to teach kids how to read good, I've found that a great way into a poem, song, or particularly poetic piece of prose is to work out the literal imagery. Literal is kind of an imprecise word, but what I mean is that it can be helpful to interpret the imagery as straightforward before applying a closer look at what that imagery might be a metaphor for. Maybe even over-literalize it as a first step. There's something unrealistic happening in this opening line, which helpfully tells us that we're dealing with a heightened or abstract reality. Something supernatural is happening. The clouds are responding to people's lack of attention on them, and they're taking that opportunity to darken the skies. Then, the buildings come to life and even take on a couple of human qualities. Well, I guess big teeth and eyes are not really human qualities, but more general animal qualities, scary animal qualities, monstrous animal qualities even. I guess these buildings transforming into Godzilla-like monsters are this song's titular giants. Next, these monsters breathe and walk through unending doors, eating restaurants and barbershops and hardware stores. Okay, so we're on some real poetic shit now. Sorry, I shouldn't curse. This is a Christian band after all. Now, I think the beauty of this type of analysis is that you can draw from your own response, your background, your perspective. Check out my video on perspective as portrayed in Pete Seeger and Malvina Reynolds' hit single From Way Up Here for more perspective talk. The words can mean something to you that their author may have never intended. Death of the author-y type stuff. Sure, this is something that more conservative interpreters of stuff mock.
Oh, I guess it can mean whatever you want, you dumb little turd.
Is what they say. And yeah, it's very true that looking too granularly at the details of a work can lead you astray. Sort of a forest for the trees kind of thing can happen. But I'm gonna do that right now. The word choice of breathe is interesting to me. They could have said something more visceral or obviously powerful or frightening. They roar and walk through unending doors. They plod and walk through unending doors. They stomp and walk through unending doors. Okay, those aren't great, but they breathe really draws my attention to the fact that these buildings are alive. Actually, they never said that the buildings are alive. They're animated and they share some qualities of living things, but they're mimicking those qualities. To get a little biblical, they're an abomination, which does show up in the Bible a lot. Unending doors doesn't seem to be a specific reference, but a lot of fractal type artwork shows up when I search the term. Endless doors seems to be a type of painting, maybe, that mimics the effect you get when you hold a mirror up to another mirror at the right angle, and you get that infinity effect that I'm hopefully remembering to put on the screen right now. So the titular giants are walking into infinity. Next, the animated buildings are described as eating restaurants and barbershops and hardware stores. So these buildings, which I picture as skyscrapers, are consuming individual businesses. You've probably already guessed where this song was going, and here we are, nibbling at the song's main theme or message or whatever, with catchphrases and jingles stealing steel and concrete lies. At this point, I think it's safe to assume that these monsters terrorizing the city are metaphors for big companies and corporations with their catchphrases and jingles and whatnot. A little wordplay there, kind of close to a pun. Stealing, steal with an A, steal with two E's, stealing steel and concrete, taking up all the resources, stealing what should be common goods for their own growth and enrichment. All right, next we get into some signature Five Iron Frenzy biblical imagery. The corridors of Babylon are craning for the skies. Now, a classic English department thing to say is,
You cannot understand a literary canon without reading Shakespeare and the King James Bible.
which is kind of true, I guess, for like the Western canon. But as many people have been waking up to, the idea that the Western canon is somehow the pinnacle of human artistic achievement is just a fancy, smart-sounding, roundabout way of justifying and perpetuating patriarchal white supremacy. But, all that said, a good biblical or Shakespeare reference does tend to elevate an ordinary piece of crap into a highbrow piece of crap, so I am partial to some fancy-pants Elizabethan language in a song or poem. And like it or not, the Bible carries a lot of weight in American and many other cultures, and Five Iron Frenzy often uses those references in a literary, artistic way, as opposed to a praise and worship preachy kind of way. Anywho, the corridors of Babylon are craning for the skies is a pretty intense biblical reference. Ah, shit, looks like I gotta crack open my Bible. All right. Let's see. What's the deal with Babylon again? I know that separate from the Bible, like historically, they're one of the oldest civilizations or large-scale settled societies we know of. Maybe came up with astrology, I think. But this must be a reference to something in the old Bible, which is short for Bible. Okay, Babylon. Here it is. Isaiah 13:19 through 22. I don't remember how to say Bible verses right. 13th Isaiah, maybe?
2 Corinthians 3:17. That's the whole ball game.
We all made fun of Trump for that, but do you know how to correctly cite a Bible verse? So I've got to quote what needs a reading. Maybe I can do the lefty YouTube thing and get someone with a little more gravitas than old Haas here to read it. Somebody like Chill Goblin, perhaps?
Did somebody say my name?
Chill Goblin, how did you get here all the way from Australia?
Never mind all that. I think I heard something about a quote that needed reading.
Oh yeah, I'd love it if you do that, as long as you're here. And this is top shelf quote reading crap here. It's a Bible verse.
Ooh la la, that's fancy stuff. But I don't know where my Bible... Oh, here it is. Isaiah 13:19-double dose. And Babylon, the glory of kingdoms, the beauty of the Chaldees' excellency, shall be as when God overthrew Sodom and Gomorrah. It shall never be inhabited, neither shall it be dwelt in from generation to generation, neither shall the Arabian pitch tent there, neither shall the shepherds make their fold there. But wild beasts of the desert shall lie there, and their houses shall be full of doleful creatures, and owls shall dwell there, and satyrs shall dance there. And the wild beasts of the islands shall cry in their desolate houses, and dragons in their pleasant palaces, and her time is near to come, and her days shall not be prolonged.
Wow, thanks, Chill Goblin. But what will you do now? Where will you go?
Wherever I'm needed most, Haas. Up, and away!
Now, I'm not going to dive into the weird stuff in that Bible verse right now. Probably didn't need to include the whole thing there. But to sum it up, in the Old Testament, Babylon is an evil city that God destroyed, probably for having sex parties and such. So the corridors of this evil city, the paths, roads, sidewalks perhaps, where people pass through, are bending skyward, maybe asking for help or at least mercy from God, or from anyone for that matter. The way I read it, our society is being compared to Babylon to illustrate that we've lost our way, or lost the plot about why we live in a society to begin with. We currently exist primarily not even to enrich ourselves, and we usually think of it as enriching the people at the top, but really we're feeding these entities that aren't even human, that are just feeding off of what little we do have to grow themselves. Oh. Is this the video in which I get to talk about Chris Ryan's idea that societal institutions like religions, corporations, and governments are effectively superorganisms that have taken on a life of their own, and that we can't perceive the fact that human beings collectively comprise these superorganisms in the same way that a cell doesn't know it's part of your body, that it's expendable and being used to benefit the system as a whole? Well, I guess I did just talk about it a bit, and I think there's definitely a connection between the idea of the superorganism and the song's titular Giants, but that concept kind of deserves its own video. Hey, Chris Ryan, author of Sex at Dawn and Civilized to Death and host of the great Tangentially Speaking podcast. Come on my stanky podcast, Bridgie, to discuss the superorganism. Alrighty, I think we're finally ready to tackle this song's chorus. I'll try and spit some actual information about the political issue this song is covering in just a second.
Who's behind that curtain anyway? Who
holy shirt, this video is going to be long, and it'll probably only get a tenth of the views my stupid fart of a video about Let's Go Brandon got. Whenever the right-wing alphas say, let's go Brandon, it means a cuss. A couple thoughts on the chorus here. When the album this song is featured on, All the Hype Money Can Buy, was released, I was first in line at my hometown Christian bookstore to buy that shiz. Oh, the one in downtown Cornelia, a couple doors down from Gusman's. Yeah, that's the one, Lighthouse Books. And I remember that as an 11-year-old hoss, I thought this song was supposed to be about God before I had really listened to the words. And yes, it uses many biblical references, as much art, sacred and profane alike, does. But it's a pretty grounded song about the decidedly secular issues of corporate dominance, wealth concentration, and greed. Especially in America, but probably also in different flavors around the world, we usually associate religion with conservatism. I imagine there will always be strains of small c conservatism in any religious tradition, but I think of that sort of conservatism as trying to keep one's behavior in line with religious traditions. Saving sex for marriage, wearing a headscarf, hating people who aren't exactly like you in every way. Okay, that last one was a little mean, but it is accurate for way too many people in this stanky world. Now, I think the idea that Jesus was a communist, with all due respect to Reagan youth, is a little overblown. But Jesus' overall ethos is inarguably pretty hippieistic. You know, lift up the poor, rich people suck, be nice to each other, all that crap. I was raised Christian, not super strict or devout, just, you know, hey, you're Baptist, by the way, and we go to church sometimes. And I can't know this for sure, but I've always suspected that being exposed to Christ's teachings at an early age planted an early seed of leftist politics in my little brain. As I mentioned before, I of course went through an annoying contrarian atheist phase as a teenager and regrettably into college as well. But when I started learning more about politics and found that the most recent American leftist tradition I most identify with is the civil rights movement, I realized that religiosity was so deeply intertwined with that tradition, it just made sense to embrace the progressive elements of Christianity. MLK, Jesse Jackson, Cornel West, then reaching back to the precursor to that, the early 20th century labor and workers' rights movement, in which Eugene Debs was a big-time leader, and his leftist politics were heavily influenced by his Christian faith. Something that I sort of touch on in this video, in which I read his amazing statement to the court, which you should watch. Funny little side note here, I started posting shorts on this channel a lot recently, which are almost universally stupid, brain-farty jokes. I mean, even calling them jokes might be a little generous, but I posted a short saying that Elon Musk should give away all his money to house the homeless, and of course a bunch of conservatives commented with their bootlicking takes. One comment said, as Jesus said, Matthew 26:11, 26th Matthew 11, damn it. For ye have the poor always with you. Now, it just so happens that I've heard this Bible verse before, and as someone who went through a protracted, annoying, edgy atheist phase, I'm familiar with exactly two types of Bible verses. The first ones are ones that right-wingers use to justify their cruel belief system, which they almost universally lift out of context and portray to mean the opposite of what someone who can read would interpret them to mean. And the second kind of Bible verse I know are the super weird ones, like when God sent 2 bears to maul like 40 children because they made fun of a bald guy. That also happens to be my favorite Bible verse, and just my favorite story in general. The Bible verse that this dude commented is the first type, and I'm gonna save myself some trouble and just read my response here. I know, people telling you stories about their social media interactions is not the best form of entertainment, but I'd just be rewording this if I didn't read it to you. Now remember, the Bible verse that this guy quoted, well, he misquoted it, but the verse he was referencing was, for ye have the poor with you always. In other words, the poor will always be with you. I responded, so is your interpretation of that half sentence lifted out of context that Jesus thought it was pointless to try and help the poor, despite all the other stuff he said, and the fact that that is not what that Bible verse means? The next clause is, but you will not always have me. There's also context around that sentence, believe it or not. Jesus was actually quoting a Bible verse from the Old Testament. There will always be poor people in the land. Therefore, I command you to be open-handed toward your fellow Israelites who are poor and needy in your land. That's
Deuteronomy, chapter 15, verse 11.
So yeah, Jesus did not say that poor people exist because God wants them to and somehow suggests that helping the poor is something you shouldn't do. I think the lyrics to the chorus pretty much speak for themselves, so I'll just point out that who pulls the levers is the right question to ask. Sure, the politicians and other authority figures in our society are the ones with explicit power, but in our hyper-capitalist reality, the people who control the money and resources, in a word, the capitalists, are the ones with all the power. And as we all know, a massive proportion of all the money is concentrated among a very very small group of people. In a supposed democracy, the people are supposed to have the vast majority of the power, and by proxy, the politicians we elect are supposed to be the main authorities, right? But when gold is God and rules with pitiless sway in the affairs of men, as Eugene Debs once said, the people with the most gold are the de facto rulers of us all. To quote another dead guy,
We can have a democratic society, or we can have the concentration of great wealth in the hands of a few. We cannot have both.
Now, that was actually Supreme Court Justice and credibly accused Brett Kavanaugh who said that, believe it or not. No, I'm just kidding. It was Louis Brandeis in 1941. So, who pulls the levers in our society? The people? Not quite. The politicians? Sort of. The people and corporations with all the money and resources? There we go. Business interests, along with the interests and aims of the wealthiest few, control our government and lives. They control the whole planet in many ways. And this is sort of part of that superorganism idea. We're controlled by the interests of non-human entities called corporations more than anything else. Like what we humans do under capitalism, including the wealthiest among us who are in charge of those corporations, advance the interests of those non-human entities above all else. It's pretty creepy when you think about it, right? And it doesn't really seem like something that politicians can change from within our current system. Now, I'm not trying to do a black pill thing here. Voting matters a lot, and it is the bare minimum that we should all do, but politicians can only tweak and maintain the current paradigm. To approach a permanent fix to wealth inequality, we have to get rid of the incentives to hoard wealth, grow indefinitely, and crush everything and everyone standing in the way of total domination. Those incentives are baked into capitalism, so any serious effort to do away with them and move society forward would have to include abolishing this system that feels natural, even elemental to most of us. Okay, as R.M. Brown might say, next grip.
Oh, don't you cry for the mommies, pops. Nothing but dry eyes for integrity's demise. Hulking machines grind as whistles blow. Corporate Darwinism crushes everything below. Advances in efficiency, increasing productivity, are narrowing the margin for liberty.
Alrighty, taking a bit of an ironic tone here. Don't be a baby about the mom and pop or small business folks who are being destroyed by big business. Really embodying the callous attitude of many conservatives. Both in terms of that's what those people deserve for not being as awesome as Walmart, and in terms of this is how things are and therefore the way that things are supposed to be. Can you imagine if everybody thought like that? We'd still be amoebas if that were the case. I've always liked the imagery depicted in the hulking machines grind as whistles blow line. It's just good imagery. You get it. Now, the phrase corporate Darwinism is another one I didn't understand as a younger boy. A lad, some called me. Before I opened up the lyric book to All the Hype Money Can Buy, I thought this line was corporate dominism crushes everything below. And I literally found out while writing the script to this video that dominism is apparently not a word. Some English teacher, right? But if it were a word, dominism would make sense here. But corporate Darwinism is more interesting. I remember wondering if that was an anti-evolution line, which would bum me out, but it's of course not that at all. Five Iron Frenzy ain't that kind of Christians. Now, words and phrases like Darwinism, survival of the fittest, natural selection, and even evolution itself are often used incorrectly or imprecisely. The fact that there's so much religious and political zealotry all twisted up with it probably has something to do with that, as I've heard right-wing fundamentalist Christians refer to people who believe that someone who has devoted their time and energy and life to studying biology for a living know more about that subject than a washed-up sitcom actor with a banana.
You'll find the maker of the banana, Almighty God, has made it with a non-slip surface. It has outward indicators of inward contents: green, too early, yellow.
Evolutionists, or Darwinists. Classic clip there, right? You know, the guy with the mustache in that clip is named Ray Comfort. Creepy name, right? Comfort. It's like subtly creepy. And no offense to all the hoss heads named Ray, but that name isn't doing any favors to someone with a last name like Comfort. But yeah, I've heard those weirdos who think they understand biology better than biologists call people who believe in evolution evolutionists or Darwinists, because apparently they think that people who believe in biology worship Charles Darwin. Obviously, they say words like evolutionism and Darwinism because that simple little tweak to the language reframes the conversation from what it is, religious zealots with no real arguments putting their belief system over science, into a disagreement between two belief systems. You know, because we associate the ism suffix with belief systems and ideologies primarily. It makes the people who don't believe in evolution seem less crazy and ignorant. But evolution is not a belief system, and as far as I know, no one worships Charles Darwin. Darwinism, in the context of this song, does, however, describe a sort of belief system, a variation on the age-old conservative turd of wisdom that might makes right. Social Darwinism takes a subtle but crucial misunderstanding of what survival of the fittest means in the context of biological evolution and applies that misunderstanding to success among humans in human society. Survival of the fittest doesn't mean survival of the strongest, as many interpret it. It means survival of who is the best fit for their environment. Obviously, natural selection doesn't favor strength more than it favors any other characteristic an animal might have. If survival of the strongest were a law of nature, the only living animal on this planet right now would be one extremely muscular T-Rex. But even if survival of the fittest did mean survival of the strongest, applying the logic of evolution, or any specific theory for that matter, to social interaction seems like a bad idea to me. It is often tempting, I'll admit, to use evolution to explain certain behaviors and realities in our social lives, but it strikes me as too easy, too convenient, and potentially kind of dangerous. Actually, not potentially dangerous. People have been misapplying evolutionary theory pretty much since the jump to justify racism, ableism, sexism, all those isms. Oh, so evolutionary psychology and the like are, as I sometimes say, some shit. Maybe the Five Iron Frenzy folks use Darwinism knowing that their mostly Christian audience would have an immediate negative association with the word. Even if you're not a science-denying weirdo, if you've spent time in Christian spaces, you might have a visceral aversion to the word. But I'm really speculating now. But, if Reese Roper comes on my podcast Spreadsheet, available for free on all podcasting apps, I won't have to speculate anymore. Just saying. What is capitalism? We're told that it's a system based on competition, in which the most successful people are the ones most deserving of that success. It, of course, doesn't actually work that way, especially when corporations are merging, buying one another, consuming and destroying small businesses, monopolizing, making it so that one or very few companies control their entire niche in the market, which sort of cancels out the competition part of the equation, right? But corporate Darwinism, as used in this song, is a pretty apt label of what capitalism is intended to be and how it operates. It's what the ethos behind the whole thing is. Let the market decide who prospers and who suffers. However things shake out, that's how things are supposed to be. That's barbaric. You know what? I'm going to recount one more interaction from the comments in that short I made about taking all of Elon Musk's money to house the homeless. I got a few comments like this.
That's some Robin Hood shit. There is a reason why things are the way they are, and stealing from the rich won't change the world. Homeless, sick, poor people are always going to be around no matter how much money we throw on them. It sounds heartless, but it's not. Rich people are going to get rich and poor people are going to get poor. It sucks, but that's how it works, and every organization that says it's working to fix homelessness is BS. Cut that crap.
Besides being just... Jesus, YouTube comments are crazy. Oh shit, I just got an idea for a new segment for my podcast, Spreadsheet, which is available wherever fine pods are casted. I guess I can do a video version for y'all right now. I'm calling it Tautologies and Talking Points, the YouTube Comments Show. Tautologies and Talking Points. Tautologies. That was the theme. I love to make a theme. Anyway, that comment was full of, you guessed it, tautologies and talking points. If you don't know, and I imagine the vast majority of people don't because they have lives and don't give a crap about the word for
a statement that is true by virtue of its logical form alone.
Tautologies often function as logical fallacies and arguments, as in someone will say something like, homosexuality is unnatural because it's an abomination. Or in this commenter's case, poverty is meant to be because it be. Maybe a little imprecise use of the word tautology there, but I'm not some smart brain philosopher like
Jean-Jacques Rousseau.
I forgot to paste the other comments into the teleprompter, so I'll have to add that in later. Or not, who cares? Okay, this is getting to be a pretty friggin' long video, and I think you probably don't need any more song explicationing. I'll play the remainder of my cover in a sec, but first I have to explain that I changed something in my version. Something kinda consequential. The original Five Iron Frenzy song almost changes into a different song after the second chorus, which is epic as hell, and I tried to recreate it as best I could, but in the bridge there's a quote or poem or something read by what sounds like a child. A toddler, it seems. It's an interesting choice, and this is what the little baby says.
This house is haunted by the ghost of Adam Smith, the wealth of nations and the further death of innocence. To rule the world, the desire of every man, the earth is shaking, there are giants in the land.
From the mouths of babes, right? Hey, that's another Bible thing. The child's voice is used to great effect in the song, adds to the weird, creepy feeling it has. Not that there's something creepy about the specific kid's voice, it's just that a child speaking is objectively creepy in certain contexts. Why is that? Anyhow, to briefly address the content of this creepy little poem thingy. Adam Smith is widely considered to be the godfather of modern capitalism, so saying that he's haunting this house is likely just a reference to the seed that he planted in the 1700s or whatever, whose consequences we're living with today. Kind of interesting that they referenced Adam Smith here, as contrary to popular belief and assumption, Smith did not envision capitalism being practiced in a way that concentrates wealth into the hands of very few people. In fact, Smith understood on some level that infinite growth in a finite world is a recipe for wealth inequality and money and power concentration, and he wrote in The Wealth of Nations, his seminal tome on capitalism that the song references here, that workers' wages should be kept high and corporate profits should be kept low. Not because he was all about social equality, but because he thought that it was the best way to maximize the wealth of nations. Now, I don't know if the Five Iron Frenzy folks had this little wrinkle in mind here, but it's something to chew on. I'll link a good article about misconceptions of Smith's work in the description. That's short for description. On the off chance that anyone from Five Iron Frenzy sees this, I should say that I'm sorry for changing this spoken word part of the song. I tried doing it in various voices and cadences, and I just couldn't get it sounding any way other than goofy. I mean, look at me. So I replaced it with something else. Here's that something else, along with the rest of my cover of Five Iron Frenzy's Giants, which I will follow up with some concluding thoughts so we can
get the hell out of here.
Who's behind that curtain anyway? Who pulls the levers and tells the lies? Giants roam the land today, gaining dominance with every stride.
This world is such a gimme, gimme, gimme. You want to be successful? You want to be like Trump? Push, 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 push. Step, step, step. Crush, crush, crush. I mean, if this is truly a melting pot in the country when we care about it, Lady Liberty got a hand like this, she really loves us, then we really need to be like that. I think there is a way. It just takes to be revolutionary. That is not idealistic, that's just real.
That's right, fam. I transformed the song into a collaboration among Hoss Bossman, Five Iron Frenzy, and Tupac Mother Friggin' Shakur. I'll link that full clip in the description, short for description, which I did chop up and rearrange a bit to make fit the song, but I think that what you just heard is a good summary of the overall point he was making in that interview. I also thought it was kind of cute that he referenced Trump from this clip in the early 90s, and it fits the song well that he's talking about stepping on and crushing people in the name of selfishness and greed. You know, giants, stomping, crushing, you get it. And he's talking about living up to the myth of America. As hardcore history host and podcasting god Dan Carlin would say, demanding an America that lives up to the marketing material. You know, Dan Carlin has a libertarian streak that may put off some leftists, but his politics are actually pretty good. Even when I disagree with him, he's thoughtful and humble enough about it to make it well worth engaging with. A smart guy. The song doesn't really end on a positive note unless you count "See the blood red sun is rising from the broken carnage of the darkest days." That communicates a bit of hope, though it's a little up for interpretation, but I thought the Tupac thing added a little explicit hopefulness to this otherwise fairly bleak song. There is a way. We can and must do better than capitalism. I don't know if the Five Iron Frenzy guys and gal are full-on socialists, but they should be. And so should you. A better world is possible. Don't let anybody tell you different. We just need to be revolutionary. And that's not idealistic. That's just real. Thanks so much for tuning in to this astounding episode of Musique Politique. Please like, subscribe, and comment with other thoughts on this song, this band, or any other songs you'd like to see me break down. You can find my links and all that shiz at www.haas.fun for all your Haas needs. I'm on Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, and Twit, short for Twitch, at Haas_Bossman. I mostly just play live music on Twitch, covers and originals and little jams, so go check me out there if you like my musical stylings. I also have music on Bandcamp you can buy under the name Haas Bossman, as well as my serious music from my currently on hiatus band, the K-Max, which I'm still pretty proud of and encourage you to check out. And of course, this is not the last you'll hear about Five Iron Frenzy on this channel. They have a ton of amazing political and philosophical songs, and I'll definitely be returning to their work. Not going to be 100% positive either. They have a few songs about the genocide and mistreatment of American Indians, or as a Canadian like old Chili Gobs would say, First Nations folks, and there's one in particular that I think misses the mark with a couple lines, despite definitely having its heart in the right place. Still planning to do more Pete Seeger stuff, but I'm going to try to have a little variety among the artists. Having discussed a Christian band here, I think I should cover my favorite band of all time, Bad Religion, next time. Yeah. That's what I'll do. Since I've decided to focus on this genre of video on this channel for the time being, every political-esque song I listen to, which, as I may have established, is a lot, feels like something I should cover, so maybe I'll start doing more relaxed live streams or little videos about the more straightforward songs, you know, the songs that I basically just want you to hear so I can say, listen to how awesome this is. Until next time, just do me a small favor and make sure you flood the soul of every sentient being you encounter with healing light. Love ya. Mwah.